because the light is trying to bring that what you call darkness or the shadow aspect we need to release up to the surface. And then it's up to us as a collective human on how we're going to react to that light.
You're watching the Spotlight Network. Starring Hollywood's newsman, Logan Crawford.
They now believe a single member.
He works with TV and film legends. And now, Logan's shining the spotlight on the world's top emerging authors and creators.
International were abducted.
This is Spotlight with Logan Crawford. Streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV.
I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're exploring a powerful book, a life-changing book. It is called The Master's Wisdom, Journey from Form to Formless. It is written by a terrific author. Her name is Paramjit Kaur, and the book is a living dialogue between seeker and guide about the soul's journey through many planes of reality. Through parables, poems, and moments of stillness, the book invites readers to look inward, past all the chaos, toward a deeper order and a quiet knowing within. If you've ever felt lost, curious, or pulled by something beyond the visible, this is written as a gentle compass and companion for the inner path. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today. We thank the team at Prime 7 Media for helping us put her on TV today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like her by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing her amazing book. The links are below this interview. Param, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Logan.
It's quite an honor to have you on the show. This book is wonderful. It's so insightful. Talk to us a little bit about how this book came about.
This book has come up as a very living experience of myself. Since I was a child, I was a very deep thinker and I had a lot of questions. I wasn't looking for any philosophy or religion as such. I was looking for answers to a very human questions. And as I was growing up, looking at the suffering around me and challenges of my own early life in my childhood, I felt very not like fitting in the society and even in a family structure. And accessing love was always quite difficult for me throughout my early age. So understanding the deeper meaning was creating a lot of confusion. Why there's so much difference in how I'm experiencing life and how others are experiencing life around me. And even looking at things, often we see there's stuff which we can choose, but then there's stuff where we don't have any control over circumstances in our life. I was very lucky to have a spiritual teacher, and I started putting those questions ahead to him. He was very patient throughout this journey, and he never dismissed any questions, bigger or small. I guess as I was evolving and getting a bit more mature and understanding where he was pointing, the confusion actually started to change into clarity, which was his favorite dialogue. He used to say confusion is directly proportional to clarity. And even though it's a paradox, it was difficult for me to understand at that time. But as I was getting more answers and able to connect the dots, the pieces of the puzzle started coming together. And as I saw the bigger picture behind the chaos of my life and why it's very refinedly structured, and same for the whole world, I wanted to share that knowledge with other people who are probably on the same quest, probably have same sort of confusion about why so much diversity in our life and why life sometimes feels so unfair, or we feel out of control and lost. And that's how the dialogue converted into Master's Wisdom. It's not a teaching, it's an invitation for those who want to have a deeper conversation with life.
It's a wonderful invitation to have that conversation with life. It's very, very approachable. It's very, very accessible. It's written in a unique form, conversation, story, poetry. Tell us why you decided to explore spiritual wisdom in this way.
I always got confused when I was reading scriptures or when I was listening to people around me, because people use so many different terms. Some will call that you're a part of a god, while others would say, well, that's your ego speaking. And I got confused. Am I part of a god or am I ego? And then people used words like mind and, or you are, say, soul. So I wasn't able to actually differentiate who actually am I? Am I this or am I that? And even reading through scriptures, there was so much variation. Some were written in a very gentle storytelling form, while others had a bit more commanding way. So I asked this question to my master, and the way he defined is that the truth doesn't really change. So the truth, which is even defined in this book, is no different than what you and me know since years and years. It's just the way truth is expressed. It has to come on the level of culture, the collective consciousness, and the language people are using at that time. For example, in Golden Age, when people were very connected to their inner self, it was easy to communicate in a symbolic language. While in Kali Yuga, like in modern age, when I think we are not very deeply connected to who we really are, we are so much outwardly focused on materialistic things that sometimes the truth has to change the way it is expressed. And with this dialogue form, I felt that the question and answer opened the space rather than just a simple teaching, because with simple teaching expressed, sometimes it feels imposed. That's how it felt for me, that I felt that it was imposed on me rather than giving me space to understand. While with the dialogue, you have a space where you can pause, you can question again, and you can doubt, and you can come to conclusion with your living experience by looking into that truth deeper. I think it opens way more wider space. That's what it did for me, and I thought that would be the way I would express it in the book, because it helped me, my analytic brain, to bypass that egoic mind that, I won't do just something because I've been told. I would do it if I understand why you're telling me to do it.
Yeah. Let's talk about God. God is an interesting concept. You would like people to rethink what we mean about God. Talk to us a little bit about that concept and why we need to rethink it.
Yeah, I think with my own experience, I always used to feel when I was a child that the way people often reflected, God is someone sitting up there judging us, controlling our life, making decisions for us. And I felt, well, if God is such a loving figure, as people say, why is such a great suffering? And if I'm asked to forgive, then why is God not forgiving me for whatever karma I have done in past? So it wasn't making sense. With Master explaining me, and the way he explained it and the way I understood it in my life is now, God is not someone who's sitting up there. It's the base of everything, physical as well as cosmic. So whether we see on a human level or whether we see this even cosmos of galaxies, everything has come from that one absolute. Now, this one absolute is whole in itself. It's complete. There's no duality. The thing is that when God is absolute and whole, there's nothing to experience because there's no opposite. The only way we can experience is by being something else. So for God to be, or for absolute to be able to experience itself, it actually divided its consciousness into three parts. The way Master explained it, these three big parts is that it's like a big cosmic playground, and we are actually equally participants. So there's players, so we all physical beings are players. There's non-physical beings as well who are players. So players is anyone who's going to participate in a game one way or another. Then players need somewhere to play. So the second part goes into the playground, and playground is, for example, planet Earth, and as we know, the universe is still expanding. There's so many galaxies and planets where life can still potentially exist, and life does exist. It's just probably science hasn't reached there. And then the third part is now got a players and a playground, but how are we going to play? So the rules of the game, which I think a lot of us don't understand fully, and that is probably why we are not able to play properly, because we don't understand life. But these laws or these rules is what keeps everything going in a particular way. And that's why there's a very grand design. Once you understand the rules, you can see the design behind the chaos. So God is not someone sitting up there. God is a consciousness in you and me, exploring ourselves and helping God or absolute. Help is probably not the good word, but probably that's in human language is very limited. But that's the way absolute can express itself. And that is why we are loved unconditionally, because how can absolute judge us when we agree to the game of illusion of separation, and that's the only way absolute can experience outside. So for that experience, it's actually loving us unconditionally, and even our love on a very deeper level for God is very unconditional, because we agreed to that illusion of separation and play this really tough game on this intense planet. That's how I look at God now, not up there, but in
Right.
you, me, and everything in nature.
Exactly. I think that's a great way to look at it. You see God in all of his creations all around you, within yourself, within others, within the beauty of a tree, within the beauty of an ocean. Let's talk a little bit about consciousness. You mentioned that before. Your book explains that consciousness evolves through many lives before becoming human. Talk to us about that concept and why it's important to understand.
Um, When we split from absolute, now before the split happened, we got to remember we were in a very non-dual situation, right? We were everything, everywhere. So if when the consciousness split, it has no concept of duality. There's no opposites. Now imagine if this consciousness is thrown into a human body on a planet Earth, which is such an intense planet with so many emotions we experience, it would not be able to navigate. It's like you're asking a child to draw a painting of a sunset who has never seen the light and the darkness. So there is no concept of contrast for it to do. If we look at the different stages which consciousness goes through, it's actually fit in design. It's a very compassionate model, so that consciousness has a chance to evolve. So before we jump into human body, we go through the different stages, and the stages doesn't start with the form, because remember, the absolute is not a form, it's a formless. So before it could jump into the form, it needs to have some subtle experience. So the first experience you and me had was in a form of a wave, not even a particle, which physics explains as quantum fluctuation. So when the term which Master often use in the book is SII, split individual identity. So that's an ego identity we recognize ourselves with. For example, my ego identity is Param. So when Param's ego identity or SII split it from absolute, we jump into, or we have an experience of a waveform. And then once the evolution is ready, or consciousness feels ready, it actually goes to the next stage of being a proton and electron. That is the first experience of duality, first experience of attraction and repulsion and opposites. This is where we learn what it is to be positively charged particle and what it is to be negatively charged particle. And then the evolution continues in the form of atoms and elements. So the periodic table is not just something which we learn in a chemistry class. It's actually a live kindergarten if you look at it for consciousness. And then it goes through a stages of minerals, rocks, and after that comes the second plane of reality, which is plant kingdom, and the growth continues in various forms. There's a lot of learning which happens in this plane of reality, and book touches about how that evolution continues. After that, we go through the animal stages, where in animal kingdom, we actually move from the self-identity to now kinship, right? So now we have offsprings, now we have depth of emotion. There is also problem-solving skills happening. And there's also one very strong emotion we learn in this kingdom, which is a fear. So this is now opposite of love, which we are learning. And that is how those emotions somewhere are in our toolbox, which will bring to our human life. And once consciousness is ready, it's a bit like astronaut master says that if the astronaut has to do a spacewalk, they have to have those education and skills. They need to do a lot of simulation hours in the lab to get used to the heavy body suit, heavy space suit, a bit like that. So before we come on planet Earth, we need to be getting used to those tools which we are going to use on planet Earth, duality and the heaviness of a form or physical being.
Absolutely. The divine spark is a fascinating concept as well. I've seen the divine spark leave people. When you see people die, they suddenly
Yes.
aren't a person anymore. They're just a body. You also write about the divine spark the moment the consciousness enters the body. Talk to us about that.
So the divine spark is basically beginning of when the life happens. The life continues. When I say when the life happens, that means when the SII or the ego identity chooses to be in the body. Universe is very precisely designed. So there's so many of us, so many different bodies, so many countries, so many physical ways we look at. The way when SII is waiting in an astral plane for the body, the way it works is that universe has, you can look at it like a computer database. So there's 4 domains which goes in computer database. I'm just using the word computer database so that we understand in a human level, but it's like a very precise system in the universe on a vibrational level. So the first thing is soul's purpose. What is it that soul is trying to achieve? The second is often a karmic imprint, which is very, very unique to each of us. So the karmic imprint from our past experiences and past life. The third is parents and ancestral patterns, which would probably give potentially a ground to what that soul is trying to achieve. So usually first and second domain feeds back into the third domain. And then the fourth would be environment. As we see sometimes, people take birth in countries where there's war going on. So there's a lot of challenges already in the environment. When these 4 domains click to the most compatible receiver, the vibrational call goes. So the SII will receive, it's a bit like a phone call, but it's not exactly phone call. I'm just using that terminology to understand it on a human level. But it's like a vibrational call where the SII will get an idea that there is a body which is ready with the circumstances exactly what it needs to achieve. Now, if that compatible receiver accepts the offer, the lease is signed. So that's when the body will be allocated to that particular SII. You can even see it as a zinc spark as science defines it. So if people are more interested, they can Google or YouTube zinc spark, which is exactly like a firework which scientists have observed when conception happens. So it's quite an interesting phenomena to explain. Science explains how life happens, while spirituality explaining why life happens.
Exactly. There's a lot science can't tell us, and that's where spirituality comes in. It fills in a lot of gaps. It gives us a lot of great explanations. Talk to us about darkness. You say it actually serves the light?
Yes. Now, this is one concept I had a lot of trouble to understand myself. It took me about probably many years, a couple of decades to get to this point. The way Master explains darkness is it's not something which is bad, which we look at bad. It's if we look at it more like a contrast or condition or circumstances, then our understanding of it changes. And when our understanding changes and then we leave that judgment and try to understand, for some reason, it start losing that power of being dark. The way he explains it, that you can't experience something without having opposite of it, right? So for even the theory of relativity says everything, even physics can't be understood without having something relative to it. We can't measure speed unless we have stillness. The similar way in our life, we can't experience something good unless there's something which we have experienced what we don't want. It gives us an idea of bad experiences tell us, no, I don't want to go there. That's not where my business is. So if we, rather than looking at something which is really punishing us or which is actually creating trouble, if we try and understand what is it that trying to teach us, what is it that I need to evolve through it, the judgment paths leaves. For example, even our shadow work, the way Master has explained darkness is it's not out there only, it's also in all of us, yin and yang. So there is a little bit of shadow in all of us, and that shadow is not to bring us down or make us feel negative, but to bring our attention to what needs to be released. Just as an example, as I was growing up, I had this childhood conditioning belief that I'm not good enough, I think, which is today's epidemic at the moment. A lot of people believe that they're not good enough or they're not loved enough. So when I got married and started living with my husband, the relationship started to change a bit. So anything which would trigger me, I would say, oh, well, you don't love me enough. It wasn't until Master brought my attention to my shadow aspect that it wasn't really his homework, it was mine, where I felt I wasn't good enough. And that was triggering everything and creating the anger. So understanding that the deeper shadow work was working on my own conditioning and unlearn that and accept the love which was coming in my life with open arms. So when we work through that darkness, the judgment, and release the judgment rather than saying, why is it happening to me, to what is it that's trying to teach me, I guess our the way of looking at it changes. As Rumi says, the light enters where the wound is. I think it's very important also to look at global circumstances, as we are able to see a lot of conflict on global level at the moment. And if you listen to the news, they say, well, there's a lot of solar flares happening at the moment. And I often used to think, if there's a lot of solar flares, a lot of light coming, why are we having global conflict? You ask astronomer, they will, people who study astrology, they would say that every time there's solar flares, conflicts increase because the light is trying to bring that, what you call darkness or the shadow aspect we need to release up to the surface. And then it's up to us as a collective human on how we're going to react to that light.
Yeah. It's fascinating. It's fascinating that life actually exists in opposites. Some would say you can't have light without darkness, right? You know, that's kind of part of the yin and the yang. In your book, you describe consciousness evolving through many forms. Is the human experience the ultimate form, the final stage? Talk to us. Is that part of a larger journey? Does it lead to, perhaps enlightenment down the road?
Yeah, enlightenment is nothing else but just remembering who you are. That's all enlightenment is. So when we take a human body, and book explains very much in detail what sort of tools we bring in our bag when we are going on a journey of being a human. And one of the things which we bring with us is amnesia. So just identifying with our ego identity rather than identifying who we really are. Once we remember who we really are, enlightenment is as simple as that. Once human journey is finished, whether you have achieved your soul purpose or the way master define it is that once you know who you are, there's no more human journey because you have finished your forgetfulness. And once you are ready to drop the body after death, there's different choices after enlightenment. So you can choose to be part of, one and everything absolute. So you can choose to be merging in that, but you might also choose to still have a dance with the beloved in different ways. So some souls might choose to work in a fifth plane of reality, where it might do different roles. For example, some might work now as a guide for other SIIs on planet Earth. Some might want to work in cosmic lab because there's a work happening all the time to make different galaxies and planets. So they might become a part of that collective doing that. There is collective consciousness, which is evolving as it's going. Some might become a part of that. The laws, the cosmic laws, some might want to work with the cosmic laws and more collective. I guess the difference is that you move from individuality to the collective consciousness. So there's no I and me now, there's just that collective awareness. That's the difference. So the options are unlimited what you want to do after that.
Do you feel that divine spark, that consciousness is eternal?
Yes, definitely. It is eternal. It's just because of our we identify ourselves as limited beings, which makes the fear going and we think this is what it is. But once you know who you are, you know that death is probably the biggest lie because you just drop the body, consciousness goes on.
Well, that's great news, obviously. People love to hear that death is a big lie and that our consciousness will continue beyond our vessel that we're in right now. Somebody's watching out there tonight, they're uncertain, they're lost, they're struggling with a problem. What's the one message you'd like them to take away from the Master's wisdom?
I would say what my master said to me when I was going through the dark night of the soul, that this breakdown, this feeling lost or sitting in a void is actually probably making space for transformation. It doesn't feel like that when you're sitting in a void because the old is not there and the new hasn't arrived. So you feel quite confused, you feel quite lost. And sometimes in life, you can't even see through what's coming. But the way Master explained it to me was through one of the cosmic law. And there's a lot of laws which are described in the book, but I'm just using this one because it's very relevant to your question, is a law of entropy. So the second law of thermodynamics of energy says basically in any system, entropy increases. The word entropy itself means disorder. So I asked Master this question, why are we moving from order to disorder? Aren't we part of a bigger order? And the way he described it is that the disorder is actually a transformation. It's just our perspective. We look at it that life is breaking down. It's not. It's when something breaks down, it actually converts into something more complex, more order, more transformed. So it's probably the life's transformation they are going through. Even when we go through what we call as identity crisis, sometimes it's actually universe is pushing you through to let go of your ego identity and now stepping into your soul identity. So anyone who's going through identity crisis is actually probably shifting from who they thought they are to who they really are. And the example could be as simple as, for example, egg, right? It's quite contained. It looks quite tidy, but you break it, you stir it in a bowl. And then what do you make? Nice omelette, right? And if you have to build a house, you have to go through a lot of messiness before a beautiful house is structured and formed. It's a bit like that. It's very difficult at that time to trust it. But the only message I'll say, what worked for me was just hang in there and surrender. Just surrender to the universe, because sometimes in those circumstances, you just need to have the trust and a leap of faith, because you can't see through that yet, but you probably at the end of the tunnel, light will come soon.
Absolutely. What is the path for a person to experience the absolute or awaken to the source within?
There's a lot of different paths, Mr. Crawford. For Master to say one path is right, then other probably is not logical, because we all are tuned in a very different way. Like some people would use, for example, Kriya Yoga, where they go through very intense and disciplined practice to connect to their inner self, while some might seek it in devotion to someone else, whether you seek in a devotion to deities, or you believe in Jesus, who was one of the ascended master who taught us so much love and created such a ripple in our consciousness that it's still stirring us after thousands of years to think who we are. So there could be different ways. Now, which way is right for you is really what aligns with your heart. And the way Master described is that there's a lot of ways to get on the top of the mountain, right? Some might take a very steep way and reach there quickly, while some might want to take small journeys, have a rest within, and then have another small journey to get on the top of the mountain. Now, different ways will give you different experiences, but the experiences are not the destination. The destination is on the top of the mountain. And when I finished this book, I asked Master to give me more information on the parts. And he said, well, let these truths ripen within you, and the dialogue will continue about the parts. So there will be a second part coming up of the book, which would be particularly focused on the parts for people who want to know more in detail. And then they can see which one really align with their heart and choose the one which speaks to them.
Wonderful. Well, we're looking forward to the release of that next book, no doubt. Let me ask you, before we leave you today, if there is one message Master can give to our viewers, our listeners today, what would that be?
Master had only one mission in his life. That was know thyself, know who you really are. And that's all he focused on, one way or another. Now, sometimes we are not ready for that question. Sometimes that question is on bottom of our list. But if we really know who we are behind our roles, behind our names, behind our connection to the society, the whole ball game changes, because then you don't really see yourself as a separated individual, performing in the society, but you see who you really are on the base level of consciousness. Because for example, I'm a nurse and I'm an author and I do other alternative therapies. But if I stop doing all of them, I don't stop existing. Yes, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter. But if that's not how it defines me. If I wouldn't have married, I wouldn't have stopped to exist. So who is it that still exists? Doesn't matter how my roles changes, or doesn't matter how I change what I do. That consciousness, which basically stepped in the body and will continue after death, who is this consciousness? So when we connect to that bigger part of ourselves, to the ocean itself, our perspective of life changes. Then you even deal with people in a very different way because you look at them as well as a part of a consciousness. So when the conflict happens, or if someone is saying something or doing something which you don't like, you don't have to agree with them, but the judgment part releases because you realize it's another being having a journey just like you, and they're probably on a different part of the journey where you are. So I think for me it has changed my interrelationship with myself first, and then with others, and also with the nature. You start seeing beauty in even what people would call a weed or a wild flower. You just look at it and you say, oh my God, you're made of same material as me. So the relationship with everything changes once you really know who you are.
Wonderful. Well, that is a great note to leave the show on today. The interconnectedness of the universe, knowing that of many come one, and that we're all part of the same universe and the same stuff, basically. You know, that flower, that tree, that ocean, that person over there, we're all connected. And I think that's a beautiful message. The name of the book we've been exploring today is called The Master's Wisdom: Journey from Form to Formless. It is a living dialogue between seeker and guide about the soul's journey through many planes of reality. It is told through parables, poems, and moments of stillness, and the book invites readers to look inward, past all the chaos, past all the confusion, toward a deeper order and quieter knowing within. Param, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Crawford.
I appreciate your time, your insight, and the wonderful work you've done on this book. It truly is a gift to our world. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time.